in the Bhava Prakasha, after that, in the section, so you have these purification, these cleaning methods, so you're subduing the faults and you're getting rid of the contaminants of tin and lead. And then after that, you've got the recipes for making ashes of mercury. And one of these ashes, so the chlorides, and one of these ashes is rasa karpura, which was the main recipe, or this important recipe that I thought the first one, where you take rasa karpura and encase it in a flour pill that's then covered in cloves and swallowed. So there's quite a complicated recipe for making that, which I won't go into right now, but anybody who actually would like to have the recipes, I've made lists of sort of various recipes for attaining rasa karpura, or at least calomel or corrosive supplement. And it's kind of difficult to know, if you just read the Bhava Prakasha, whether this is seen as part of the purifying process, or whether this is something different again. And I've for myself, I've kind of concluded that the purification ends when the quicksilver is still liquid. But the jury is still out on that, I feel. I wouldn't, from the text itself, I think we can't really decide this. Now, a word on the purification in general. Maybe you've noticed sort of the words that I've been using, words like perfecting, processing, and so on. The reason being that the actual things that you do is, in each of the steps, in each of these 8 steps, you mix mercury with something else. You mix it with plant materials, and then you heat them. You mix it with urine. You mix it with all sorts of things, coal, a lot of other things. And again, this textbook, I really rather like this textbook, I've got to say, because it's got a very human voice, unlike the classical text. And I'd like to read his quote. He says, so the authors comment on the confusion created by the translation of purification for shodhana, which is the Sanskrit word that's usually translated with purification. And they say, any student who has studied the basics of chemistry is bound to get confused. Metals and metallic compounds, when they're heated and dipped in various organic liquids, most of them of acidic nature, are bound to get converted into some other substance due to chemical reaction. Similar are the cases where substances are roasted or liquefied and dipped into various liquids. It means almost every purification method makes the substance impure, and still the procedure is called purification. And they sort of explain this, because now there are very good industrial methods of getting, pure quicksilver, pure Hg, and can we use these for Ayurvedic formulations? And his answer is no, they have to go through these perfecting processes. Now, these perfecting processes, yes, you're trying to get rid of impurities. You're supposed to subdue the innate characteristics that you don't want, or counteract them somehow. You also want to make it sort of absorbable by the human body. And there's a last one. Well, you want to make it absorbable, and you also want to enhance the potency of the mercury in a way. Well, you want to enhance the potency of the mercury, but you also want to enhance, through using mercury, you're also enhancing the potency of the herbal or other mineral substances in the medical formulation. Now, the idea is that the end product, after whatever steps you take here, should be extremely potent and completely safe. A perfect medicine. And we could basically call this the Ayurvedic orthodox position that properly processed mercury should have no side effects. There should be no mercury poisoning, at least not with these products. And this is and the side effects that were explained before, these are really, it's just when you take mercury in the wrong way, mercury that hasn't been processed. 300 years later, and this is the position, right? In any later book on, that has the mercury formulations, this is how they describe it. Now, 300 years later, the Biogenic Novel was written, or rather again compiled. The author used a lot of the Bhava Prakasha. For example, the whole chapter on syphilis, on Virangaroga, is just taken verbatim. It's exactly the same. There's also a section on the processing of mercury, which is rather shortened. The special thing about this work, which belongs to the 18th or 19th century, it's the 18th century, but large parts of it have been added in the 19th century, and it seems that this special part that I'll speak about was probably added in the 19th century, so it's really rather late. So there's a separate chapter on mercury poisoning. And this is sort of, this doesn't occur anywhere usually in the Ayurvedic books. Now, in the Bhaskya Ratnavali, which is a very important book that is still used a lot, particularly in Bengal, and it's sort of part of the syllabus in modern Ayurvedic colleges and so people read it, they use the formulations. This is also quite a nicely readable book, I've got to say. It's sort of, yeah, I quite like it. It's very clear, like the Baba Prakasha, really. The author has a lot more symptoms of mercury poisoning. Destruction of the bridge of the nose, catarrh, falling out of teeth, bulging of the eyes, I'm not sure about that one, spreading eruptions and spots on the skin, itching, severe headache, discoloration of the skin, sores in the nose, etc. Well, I guess all the sort of everywhere in the face, around the mouth, tender nodules and swelling in the scrotum, stiffness, tremors, damage to the gums, ulceration and pain, and finally salivation. So, you know, we were sort of missing salivation in the list of things that could happen when you take the medicine, and here it is now. Again, I should point out, however, that this author, although now we've got this whole list of, you know, bad things that can happen with mercury, it still is within the Ayurvedic paradigm, because the idea is that these are all things that happen if you get exposed to unprocessed mercury. And he mentions steam of mercury, bashpa. Steam, so I'm thinking maybe he was talking about industrial contexts, because he's not talking about fumes. You know, I told you he took this whole chapter from the Baba Prakasha about syphilis, where, you know, we're burning mercury, and the fumes are maybe inhaled or maybe applied to the body. So he has that, and the word there is smoke, dhuma. And here the steam of mercury is bashpa, so this is obviously something else that he's talking about. What's interesting about this chapter, is that, however, and I got very excited about this, was that he offers some measures to counteract mercury poisoning. This is completely new. This is nowhere else in the Ayurvedic books. You know, always with the caveat that I have not read every single one of them. You know, we were talking about 40 works per 100 years. You know, and I've read, you know, maybe 8. So, you know, clearly there's work to be done on this. And I really thought, reading a lot of European recipes and so on, I found that there were no remedies for mercury poisoning. Now, in the European medicine, everybody was aware of how toxic mercury was. Everybody got ill, people died. You know, we knew this from the 16th century. You know, taking mercury was a wretched thing. And you find it a bit strange that even though they sort of wrote about how everybody hated it, they still used it for so long. In the Indian context, they sort of never admit to it. So in a way, it sort of makes sense, you know, for using it, you know. But now, in the 19th century, 18th or 19th century, we've got some measures to counteract, and I think it's a very logical remedy. The main remedy is the intake of purified sulfur with honey. You know, you think of that, the base of most Ayurvedic remedies with mercury is to mix mercury with sulfur, because they amalgamate well and so on. So this is the idea. You take purified sulfur with honey, and this will get rid of the mercury, somehow the poisonous mercury in your body. It doesn't end there. There's also 2 herbal decoctions, one herbal electry, consisting of a number of plant materials. I've got a sort of longer list. If anybody's interested, I can give it to you. Here are some of the herbs that are used, and there again, they're very sort of well within standard Ayurvedic remedies. Things like triphala, so the 3 myrobalans, solanum indicum, bilva, so wood apple, guduchi, katki, and asparagus racemosos. You sort of get the feeling like, oh, and then take any medicine, you know, sort of for against poisoning. He does say the group of Jivaniya drugs, so the tonic drugs, and then also any drugs that are used in problems with Vata,